Hi everyone, I'm Zoya Hasan. We're at the Forbes Under 30 Summit today, backstage here with Vivian too, the CEO and founder of Your Rich BFF. So excited to have you here, Vivian.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, so Vivian, you are quite literally like best friend and financial advisor to some 3 million people on the internet. Can you take me back to that time when you first decided to start making these very niche personal finance videos?
Yeah, I want to tell everybody that it's an amazing business model that I had in mind, but frankly, it was an accident. I left Wall Street to go to media and tech, and when all of my new colleagues were asking me, hey, what should I be investing in my 401k? Or which health insurance plan did you pick? I started putting that content onto social media, and the very first video went viral, and it turns out a lot more people than just my coworkers needed that information.
So it was the very first video, it took off.
Very first video, and people always ask me, like, what was the secret sauce? What did you say? It very literally was just, hey, we are in the middle of the pandemic. People are getting stimulus checks. They're getting really bad advice of putting all of that money into one investment, typically a very risky investment, what have you. And I just said, that's not how you get rich. That's not how you grow your money. It's not good advice. And I don't have any get rich quick schemes, but if you want to learn more about personal finance, I can teach you. And that was the whole video.
Amazing. So you went viral straight off the bat, but regardless of that, was it ever nerve-wracking to make these videos and put yourself, in front of a camera for the whole world to see?
Yeah, if you actually go back and watch my very first video, you can hear my voice shaking halfway through the video. I was so nervous, right? You're putting yourself onto the internet for the very first time. And I would say I'm actually a pretty private person. People never believe me when I say that because of what I do for a living, but it's really scary to be judged and you feel very vulnerable. And especially when your channel is your face, it feels very personal if someone doesn't like your content, so it can be very scary.
Indeed, but Vivian, you've come a long way and you were on our top creators list this year for the second time.
Yeah, thank you.
That is amazing. But tell me, did you imagine doing this? Did you imagine your platforms would take off the way they did?
No, I was always the daughter of Chinese immigrants. I was always doing things the right way, and by the right way, it meant the path that was already kind of carved out in the road. I was a very good student. I went to UChicago. I got my job on Wall Street, and the expectation was that I would stay as a trader for the rest of my life, make a really, really wonderful living, have my golden retriever, white picket fence house, 2.5 kids, and I'd go on vacation twice a year. And that was the whole plan. But it has been the most rewarding thing of my entire life to completely upend my career twice, not even just once, but twice, to go from finance to tech and media, to go from tech and media to being my own business and running my own business. I feel so fortunate that I have been able to have a metamorphosis twice over already.
And do you remember that exact moment when you decided that, okay, this brand, my social media is gonna be my full-time job. I'm gonna leave everything else and I'm gonna put everything into this?
Yeah, I remember the moment. It was when I realized I couldn't do my full-time media and tech job the same level of, effort and putting that in and saying, oh, I can't do my full-time job and Your Rich BFF well. I can only do one of them well, and the other one's going to suffer regardless. And that was a really scary moment because I had never thought of quitting my full-time job. I was making over $600,000 a year, which is a crazy amount of money to walk away from. And I was terrified. So what I did was I set aside a really big nest egg. And I said, okay, I am going to save money. I'm going to save $100,000, which is a ton of money. And that way, if I leave my full-time job and I start Your Rich BFF and it doesn't work out, I'll have that money to pay my rent. I'll have that money to buy food, and I've bought myself some time. So I thought, I was like, okay, I have a year, 2 years maybe. And then if it doesn't work out, I can always go back to my old job. And I talked to my fiance, and I said, this is what I'm planning on doing. What happens if I can't make rent? And he said, this is part of why I say it's so important to have a really, conscientious partner. He said, well, we'll never starve on my salary. I'll make sure you're okay. And that gave me the parachute I needed to jump out of the plane. And it was the best decision of my life.
Well, yes, it certainly was, and we all love seeing you on the internet. But tell me, other than your time on Wall Street, were there any personal experiences that really taught you how to take care of your own finances?
Yeah. So when I was in my early 20s, me and my girl roommate had moved from our first apartment together to our second apartment together. And we were so excited to live there. We were downtown girlies now. We were very, very cool. And we found out the very first weekend there that we had a horrible cockroach infestation. Very New York.
Yes,
it's a very character building moment. And there was no way that we were going to be able to get out of this apartment. And we paid 2 months of rent to break our lease, to get out of this apartment. And that was every dollar I'd saved from my first year of working. Every single dollar.
Wow.
I had to take a really hard look at myself and say, you are now a year and a half in to your full-time adult life, and you are no better off than you were 365 days ago. And that made me feel really bad about myself. I felt really foolish for not double checking the apartment. I felt, stupid that I couldn't just tough it out in the apartment. And I really tightened the belt and made a plan on how to budget and save my money more effectively so that this was never going to happen to me again. I was never going to have to feel this way.
Amazing, amazing. And we could all use personal finance tips, but admittedly, the topic can be like a little dry sometimes, hard to grasp. So tell me, how do you make sure to captivate your audience, especially on platforms like TikTok, where it's so easy to just scroll away?
I talk to them and I meet them at their level. Of course, if I'm sitting here lecturing about a 401k and a Roth IRA, I'm going to lose you. I've already lost you. But I say something like, how would you like to spend the last 30 to 40 years of your life sipping Mai Tais on the beach in a beautiful beach town in Florida, or even better, the south of France? Now you're listening. Now I have your attention, because now suddenly retirement isn't something where you don't even get to enjoy until you're 90 years old and have very little left to live for. Now you're realizing, if I want to have my happily ever after, maybe looking into a 401k or a Roth IRA are really important. But you have to grab their attention and then explain why something that can seem very boring is so relevant to them. Because at the end of the day, everybody is selfish. They don't care about learning. They care about what's in it for me. And when I provide that value prop, they're more willing to listen.
Yeah, so you're essentially putting the fun in finance.
I put the fun in finance.
Yeah, that's amazing. And Vivian, is it hard to be constantly marketing yourself?
I used to think of it as marketing, and I was like, oh, it's so cringe to tell people my name and be like, you should follow me. But as of late, I've been really, really just rethinking that. It's more so brand building. And we hear males and men do it all the time. You don't even notice it. Right? Think about the last rap song you listened to. Mustard on the Beat, Mike Will Made It, Jason Derulo. People love to say their own name.
Yes,
and
so true.
For me, I had to get really comfortable with saying, hi, I'm Vivian too, your rich BFF and your favorite Wall Street girly. And what I loved about that, it was so short. They remembered my name. Your Rich BFF was my handle, so if they ever needed to find me, they could do so. And then 3, Wall Street Girly, that tells you everything you need to know. You know what I'm about to talk about.
Exactly.
I'm about to talk about money, I'm about to talk about finance. And it was just a fun, cute tagline that came out of an innocent place, but has really started to become the, building pillar of my business. And I feel very lucky that I was able to find it so early on.
Yeah, amazing. And love that, your rich BFF.
Yeah.
That's perfect. But since we are at the Under 30 Summit, my last question for you is going to be, the founders, the creators, people like yourself who are all of a sudden coming into new wealth.
Yeah.
A lot of them are here at the Under 30 Summit today. What is your personal finance advice for them?
Yeah. I always say, in an environment such as being a creator or being an entrepreneur, you have to plan for the future. And I'm not talking the next 40 years. I'm saying, when I think of creators, I think of us as NFL players, not NBA players. You get 5, maybe 10 good years if you're really good. But we haven't necessarily seen even the full life cycle of what an influencer looks like. And you don't necessarily get the same 40 years that an accountant, doctor, lawyer, or normal employee does. So for me, I recognize that I'm probably going to make a lot of money in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
But after that, I could be chopped liver. But knowing that any money that I do make in this short time frame, I need to be really smart about. I can't be blowing all my money. Sure, I can treat myself every so often, but growing my wealth, investing for the future, and taking care of tomorrow's me is so, so important. And I really encourage anybody who is at the summit or listening to this, or even just wanting to build for themselves, to take care of yourself in the future as well as today.
That's great advice, and that's exactly why we trust you with our financial decisions. Thank you so much, Vivian.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Yep.